Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dustytron channel, and today we're going to be talking about the NFC West. This division is definitely one of the more interesting divisions in the league, so we got a lot to talk about. But before we get started, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to follow the social media links that are linked in the description below. Alright, at the bottom of the division I have the Arizona Cardinals. And I know some people are starting to say that, oh, the Cardinals might be able to put things together this year. They'll be a dark horse team in the NFC, and I'm just not buying it. And I think really the reason is I'm not a Kyler Murray believer. He's shown flashes throughout his career, but whenever the Cardinals would have a hot start, they'd always cool off. And now they've kind of been in this weird middle of the pack, lower end of the league limbo for the past couple of years, and I don't think Kyler Murray is going to lift them out of that. There were definitely a lot of questions last year, him coming off his torn ACL, to see how is he going to perform coming back from that, and he performed decently, but was he a game changer? I would say he wasn't. Looking at their offensive numbers from last year, they were the 11th overall ranked offense, 18th passing, and 7th rushing. So the rushing numbers kind of prop that up, and that's a lot because of James Conner. He's still being productive, even as an older back. Now, he is hitting the age 30 year, which is kind of the death knell for some running backs, so he might finally be reaching that point where his production starts to taper off this year. But I think a lot of the optimism around the Cardinals has to do with, can Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. continue to grow with what they had last year? A lot of people were expecting Marvin Harrison Jr. to be the clear-cut top rookie wide receiver last year, and I think it's interesting because people are viewing his rookie season as kind of a down season, but if you look at his numbers, he had 885 receiving yards, almost 1,000 receiving yards, and 8 touchdown catches. It's just he was overshadowed by how good Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. were. So I really think Marvin Harrison Jr. could still prove to be the best out of those rookie wide receivers, but he's got some tough competition here, and we need to see him continue to grow this year. But if Kyler Murray can live up to the potential he's always been held to, and Marvin Harrison Jr. can really be that number one wide receiver, then maybe this offense can click, especially if James Conner continues putting out the output in the rushing attack that he has for the last several seasons. Now shifting over to the defensive side of the ball, they were bottom half of the league last year, 21st overall, 14th against the pass, 20th against the rush. So yeah, not the best showing for Jonathan Gannon's first year as the coach. And with a defensive coordinator background, you're kind of hoping that improves. Now, they did make 2 offseason additions. That might help a lot with that. Dalvin Tomlinson, he's a big interior guy, played very well with the Browns. He should definitely bring some toughness up front. And then the big signing that they had in the offseason was Josh Sweat from the Philadelphia Eagles, who had 18.5 sacks from 2021 to 2022. And that was when Jonathan Gannon was his defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. So there's a connection there, and it might work out. And if it does, then expect to see a little bit better performance from the Cardinals defense this year. Ultimately, the Cardinals do rely a bit on where Kyler Murray takes them. He has always been billed as a dynamic playmaker. I think he's a little bit less so of that since his ACL injury. And he's at the point now where he's had to show me that he's a superstar, and he's not a superstar. I think you're getting it about an average quarterback in the league, but if Marvin Harrison Jr. takes strides, then maybe he can lift up an average quarterback. But I don't see it working out this year. There's a lot of talent in this division, and I have the Cardinals at 4. Moving right along here. This one might be a little bit controversial, but I'm starting to be a little less of a believer in this team. I have the San Francisco 49ers at number 3. I think the 49ers really missed their window, and you're starting to see the revolving door here. I mean, look at this list of departures. There are a ton of names on there, and some big names too. This to me is a change. It feels like a changing of the guard season for the 49ers. And they really did kind of make the decision to stick with Brock Purdy. They gave him that big contract. So I think we're really going to start seeing this year, is Brock Purdy an elite NFL quarterback, or did he just work really well in Kyle Shanahan's system because he had a lot of talent around him? And frankly, last season, I'm inclined to believe it's the latter, because the 49ers were racking up injuries and then the 49ers weren't getting wins. There is definitely something to be said about a quarterback that can run the system really well, as it seems like Brock Purdy can. But I think when you don't have the talent around him, you're going to start to see some of the issues with his play. I mean, he was a 7th round pick for a reason. I'm not buying into it. We'll have to see how that plays out. But what could definitely help Brock Purdy is if Christian McCaffrey stays healthy this year. When Christian McCaffrey is on the field, he is such an electrifying, dynamic playmaker, and he can single-handedly change games. Now, I'm a little biased being a Panthers fan. I want to see Christian McCaffrey do well, but he's starting to get older and he's starting to get more injury prone. And some of these injuries, they kind of come out of nowhere, especially at the start of last season. It seemed like he was doing really good in training camp, and then all of a sudden, week 1, he's not playing, and then he doesn't play until like halfway through the season. And that was a big hurt, because I can imagine that Kyle Shanahan's plays that he can run goes down significantly without having the elite talent that is Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. Another player you're really going to need to see step up for the 49ers to be successful this year is Brandon Ayuk. He has to prove he's a number 1 receiver. I think that he was a really good number 2 receiver, but with Deebo Samuel gone now, he is the main receiver. I mean, you can argue George Kittle he's one of the best tight ends in the league. But if you're looking purely at route running receivers, Brandon Ayuk's the guy now. I believe Ricky Pearsall's number 2. So he's got to show that he was worth the money that the 49ers gave him. And I've never been convinced he's a number 1. I was kind of really thinking that the 49ers shouldn't have given him that much money. And I think you're going to see this year that he's probably not worth it. But maybe I'll eat my words on that one. On the defensive side of the ball, they did lose a lot of talent, and they were already starting to show holes last year. So you might see some struggles with that. They were the 8th overall defense, 5th against the pass, but 18th against the run. The only real major offseason addition to note for the 49ers on the defensive side of the ball was drafting Mykel Williams out of Georgia. He was a really big part of the Georgia Bulldogs defense, and I think he can bring a lot of dynamic playmaking to the 49ers defense, but they lost a lot of talent and really haven't added too much more. So I think ultimately you are going to see a step back for the 49ers. At the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan's scheming on the offensive side of the ball will probably keep this team competitive in most games, but they're losing players on offense, they're losing players on defense. I really thought that last year they might be able to make one final push, but then they kind of hit all these speed bumps, couldn't stay healthy, and missed the playoffs. And I don't see them doing much better than that this year, because they just lost talent from that team from a year ago. Unless CMC can become otherworldly again and superhuman, I think the 49ers, they missed their window and they're going to keep falling, and I have them at 3. Next, we've got the Seattle Seahawks at number 2. And it was kind of interesting going through these NFC West predictions, and when I was writing them up, I was noticing that a lot of these NFC West teams have questions around their quarterback. I mean, besides the Rams, I think they're pretty set right now, but Brock Purdy for the 49ers, was he worth the contract? Kyler Murray, can he ever live up to his potential? But I think the biggest question of all is Sam Darnold on the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to admit I'm probably a little biased about this because Sam Darnold played on the Carolina Panthers for a bit, so I saw him play a decent amount. And I will say, Sam Darnold has a lot of upside, and he can make some spectacular plays. But then he makes those absolutely terrible plays, and it makes no sense, and he chokes at the worst possible moment. Vikings fans, they saw that last year with how the season ended. You saw a bad Sam Darnold there, and that was with Sam Darnold having a top 10 offensive line in the league and the elite receiving talent that Minnesota has. Now he's going to Seattle, and is he going to sink or swim in this system? Yeah, he's coming to Seattle, who had not a top 10 offensive line, the 31st ranked offensive line. Geno Smith was having all sorts of problems getting protection last year from this offensive line. It was bad. And when did you see Sam Darnold not succeed? Didn't succeed on Carolina, didn't succeed on the Jets, who both had bad offensive lines at the time. So call me skeptical, but I don't see Sam Darnold working out in this environment. And what makes matters even worse for Darnold this year is that there's a lot of turnover at the wide receiver position this year. DK Metcalf left for Pittsburgh. Tyler Lockett, although he was aging, went to the Tennessee Titans. So now Jackson Smith-Njigba, he is the number one wide receiver for the Titans. And they did bring in Cooper Kupp, which I guess maybe you could argue he'd be the number one, but he's starting to deal with injuries. He's starting to get older. And I know he did well with Jared Goff, but I really feel like Cooper Kupp reached a next level with Matthew Stafford throwing him the ball and the chemistry that they had. But yeah, your wide receiver number 3 is Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who somehow still has an NFL career. He always randomly pops up, gets a couple of good games. The Saints, he had 2 super good games last year and then fell off a cliff. He's still in the league somehow, and he's their 3rd wide receiver. But last year, they had the 8th passing offense and the 28th rushing offense. You're going to need to see some more. I think a lot of those rushing numbers are because Kenneth Walker couldn't stay healthy. So it's like, are you playing Walker? Are you playing Zach Charbonnet? Are you playing some other guy who's just low on the depth chart? And when you have the 31st ranked offensive line, that's not really going to get you results. What I am really curious about, I really liked their draft of Jalen Milroe. He's a raw talent quarterback. He really reminds me a lot of Jalen Hurts, how the Eagles drafted him, not in the first round, he was a second round pick, but they let him sit a bit. And this is a situation where Jalen Milroe could sit a bit. And I think he's got a lot of dynamic playmaking potential. But yeah, he definitely needs work in his mechanics and whatnot. But this will allow him to kind of sit and watch the game. And like, if Darnold is here for a year or two, he comes in year 2, and maybe he can really do well in the system. I also really like the draft pick of Gray Zabel. Great offensive piece. 31st offensive line. A lot of people mocked Gray Zabel to the Seahawks. I did as well. And yeah, they really needed him. But looking on the defensive side of the ball, they were 14th in the league last year overall, 11th against the pass, 16th against the rush, so really kind of middle of the pack. They did sign DeMarcus Lawrence in the offseason, but he's getting old, and it's kind of like a flashy name. I don't know if he's really going to make too much of an impact, but outside of that, there wasn't really too much in terms of offseason additions on the defensive side of the ball. So I have Seattle at 2, but I feel like they've got enough talent that if they put everything together, I think that they're heading more in that type of direction than the 49ers, who are kind of falling in the opposite direction. I could see the 49ers and Seattle switching spots here, but I think I'm ultimately going with Seattle at number 2. And lastly, at the top of the division, I have the Los Angeles Rams. And this team for me last year was a big dark horse pick for me because the season before, they hadn't done that well. People were wondering if Sean McVay's system was starting not to work anymore. But then, and especially when they started the season 1-4 last year, things weren't looking that great, but I was like, oh, if this team can just put it together. And then they started winning some games, and I saw the rest of the NFC West, and I'm like, you know what? Once the Rams put this together, they are going to win this division. They went 9-3 down the stretch, and they won that division and a playoff game. And really, they were very close to defeating the Eagles, who won the Super Bowl. They had the ball at the end of the game and were driving down to get a touchdown. They just couldn't pull it off. I think the Rams are one of the most underrated teams in the league right now. And I think part of the reason is that the Rams have been doing really well drafting late in the draft. They got Puka Nacua, they got Kyren Williams, and the Puka Nacua pick, that allows them to go off Cooper Kupp, who is aging, so it's a changing of the guard, and they were able to get better. The Rams offense last year, 15th in the league, so middle of the pack, but I think they were definitely doing better. Down the stretch, they were 10th passing, 24th rushing, so definitely room for improvement in the rushing attack. But I think with Matthew Stafford there, he's definitely getting to be at the end of his career, but he's still got good football in him left, and I think he just works really well in this Sean McVay offense. They've been having a lot of success together here. I am interested to see how Davante Adams fits into that. He's a big name right now, but I think he still has some good football left in the tank. Definitely getting older, but like if he can contribute decently, and then you have Puka Nacua, what he's doing, and then you have Kyren Williams is able to stay healthy and running effectively, this offense is scary. I do have to point out, though, that they did lose Demarcus Robinson, who he's always this under-the-radar wide receiver who I was able to kind of stash as a deep roster spot in fantasy dynasty leagues. And I would play him, and he would do decently, but alas, he is no longer on the team, and I'm a little sad about that. On the defensive side of the ball, definitely some room for improvement there. They're 26th overall defense last year, 20th against the pass, 22nd against the rush. But they have a really foundational building block in defensive rookie of the year last year, Jared Verse. 4.5 sacks during the regular season, but he had 2 during the postseason. He also had 2 forced fumbles during the regular season, and you can just see he's got some dynamic playmaking ability, and he's going to make life really hard for quarterbacks as he continues to mature and get better in this league. But ultimately, I feel like, those teams that they just hit their stride some points. I feel like the Rams were that team last year, and I really think they're going to carry that momentum into this year, and they'll, I believe, get even farther in the playoffs than they did last year. I think that they're going to run away with this division. I've got the Rams winning the NFC West. So to recap, my NFC West rankings are the Cardinals at 4, the 49ers at 3, the Seahawks at 2, and the Rams at 1. Do you agree with my picks? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we've only got one more division preview to do, the AFC West. We're flying right through these. If you like the video, give it a like, and please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps the channel grow. I truly appreciate it. And be sure to follow my social media channels that are linked in the description below and shown at the end of the video. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time on the Dustytron channel.